Welcome to Sunday Springboard with Melanie and Kimberlyn Coaching, where we help women find their strength and flourish after major life transitions. We are continuing with discussing emotional influencer, and remember the whole series is on the influencers. We've talked about spiritual, we've talked about mental, and now we're still talking about emotional. This is the third part of the emotional influencer, and I wanted to give us a third time because our emotions are just so much a part of our life. God created us to be emotional beings, and they can be so great and wonderful, and they can be so hard and terrible. And so I just wanted to give us one more time. And just as a reminder, I put all of my videos, I do a weekly video on Sunday afternoons called Sunday Springboard, and if you want to catch up and watch any of the previous ones, just go to my website, kimberlyncoaching.com. And Clinton, you threw me off there, but thank you. Go to kimberlyncoaching.com and look on the Springboard tab, and you can find my previous videos. So today we're going to continue with emotions. The last 2 weeks we talked about how to become aware of and understand our emotions. We talked about how to express our emotions, how to have some control over our emotions, responding instead of reacting, and learning to limit how often our buttons get pushed. Today we're going to talk about releasing our attachment to outcomes. We're going to talk about learning to just sit in our emotions sometimes, and then we're going to learn how to shift our emotions. So let's talk first about releasing your emotional attachment to your outcomes. So often you feel emotionally upset or disappointed or angry or sad because something didn't turn out the way you wanted. Someone didn't say what you wanted, or they didn't act the way you wanted, or a situation didn't turn out the way you wanted. And because you have an attachment to this outcome, you become disappointed. This is another way of saying you had an expectation. And in 12-step groups, we often say that expectations are premeditated resentments. So when we do the work of something, we have a goal, but we are set on this certain outcome that we just have to have. Then we limit the possibilities, we limit the options that we have. Here's an example. So Angela wanted a new job more than anything. She graduated from college a couple years ago. She'd immediately got a job, but it's just a life-sucking job. Just sucks all her energy, all her joy. She just hates it. But she works really hard at it. She works hard all day. At night, she looks for new jobs. And every time she gets an interview, she thinks, this is it. This is going to be the job. This is the one I have to have. And so even though she tries to ignore it, she ends up having this fantasy that she has to have this job. So every time it happens, she gets this obsession about it, but she rarely gets past the second interview. But she is attached to the outcome. It's not that she just wanted it to happen, but she felt like she needed it to happen. She said, I'm probably making too big a deal of it, but I want it so badly. So before her current job dissatisfaction, she had a strong spiritual life, a strong connection, a sense of security, and optimism that other people gravitated toward. But she's wondering, I wonder if I've lost some of that connection while I've been so dissatisfied with my job. She says, I wonder if I'm blocking my blessings. So she decides that maybe her neediness is turning people off and sabotaging her job searching attempts. So she decides she needs to change her approach. She doesn't know how, but she is willing to try. Something about her eyes could let you know that she is willing to do something different. So instead of having such an attachment to this outcome, she decided to just relax and just believe that when the job was right, then it would happen, and that whatever the outcome came, it was going to be the best for her. As she began to let go of these things more and more often, then there came some openings and she was able to change her job situation. So when you attach yourself to an outcome, you put your emotional power and energy into the hands of another person or another situation or another thing. And then you limit your possibilities, you limit your options, you this attachment to outcome is not mastery. Remember, we've talked about mastery orientation and performance orientation. The performance orientation is where it is part of this, having an attachment to the outcome. You have to do whatever this is perfectly. If you don't do it perfectly, it's a failure. We live much more happily if we have a mastery orientation, which means we're always learning and growing. Every experience is helpful. When we perform in a way that's not to our optimum, it's not perfect by any means, it's still good. It's still good because we're learning, we're growing. We don't expect ourselves to be perfect. We strive for excellence, but we're not stuck in that perfection. So this idea of letting yourself not be attached to the outcome, it doesn't mean that you're any less interested in accomplishing this goal that you've set for yourself, but it means you're less interested in the fear of it not happening the way you want it to happen. You shift your attention away from that because you feel safe. So let's talk about our emotions and sitting in our emotions. We don't want to do that. We generally just want to feel the good emotions, the fun emotions, the nice emotions, and the emotions that we consider bad or the painful ones, we really want to get out of those really fast. But sometimes you just need to let yourself sit there, just feeling the feelings. And so you say, well, so how can I sit there with the feelings of feeling bad and feel okay with it? You don't. You just sit there and feel bad, but you know in your head that you are okay. So your emotions make you human. Even the unpleasant ones have a purpose. Don't lock them away. If you ignore them, they just get louder and angrier. That is a quote from, not sure how to say this, but Sabaa Tahir, A Torch Against the Night. So sometimes in your emotions, just sit in them. So you're frustrated. Just sit in the frustration. Don't shift it. Just let yourself be frustrated. Sit in the uncomfortableness of it and know that it will be okay. But just be there. Instead of doing a rant about frustration and venting about it, maybe sitting in it is like this. You think, what is causing me to be frustrated? How does this feel to be frustrated? What is driving my frustration? If I was to not be frustrated, what would that feel like? What would I possibly be feeling and thinking? What would I need to believe in order for me not to be frustrated? Don't try to act yourself out of the emotion. Just try to understand the emotion. Get the message of the emotion. If you don't get the message, it's just going to keep coming up. Remember the story about the beach ball? When you try to hold the beach ball under the water, it keeps popping up and popping up. You keep pushing it down, it pops up. If it's got a lot of air, it's even harder to keep under. If you let some of the air out, you can keep it down a little better. That's the way our emotions are. When we try to push them down, they just keep popping up. As we let some of our emotions out, we process them, we release them, we feel them, then they don't pop out so often at inappropriate times and in inappropriate ways. So sometimes by avoiding one emotion, we actually experience another emotion just as uncomfortable. So, and even often, sometimes that emotion that we're trying to avoid, the one that we end up feeling is the very one we want to avoid. So like conflict. Oh, I hate conflict. I don't want to have any conflict. And so you say, okay, so what do you do to keep yourself out of the conflict? Well, I just say yes. I don't ever speak my mind. I just go along with it. I'm just okay because I don't want the conflict with anyone. But so here's the deal. They're not in conflict with the other people, but they're in conflict with themselves. They're like, here I am again. I'm not saying what I want to say. I'm not sticking up for myself. That you start judging yourself and you start feeling horrible about it. So now you're not in conflict with the other people, but you're in conflict with yourself. So you're still feeling that uncomfortable emotion that you're trying to avoid. So other people, maybe they're trying to avoid feeling alone. So they want to date, but they're like, I don't want to feel alone. If I go out and I try to date and people reject me, I'm never going to find anybody, and the end result is I'm going to be alone. Well, because of the fear of rejection and not dating, then they're alone. So a lot of times when we're trying to avoid a feeling, we're just recreating the feeling in a different way for ourselves. So emotions are temporary. This is another good Al-Anon saying, this shall pass. So often when we're experiencing something, we feel like we're going to feel this way forever. This is going to be permanent. And so instead of saying, I feel sadness, we say, I am sad. And so that becomes more of an identity rather than just an emotion that I'm feeling. What's important about this is when your thoughts change, then your feelings are going to change. So it's much better to describe what we're feeling instead of turning that into an identity that even if it feels like it's going to last forever, we can know that it is not. This too shall pass. So we have thoughts, feelings, and emotions, but we are not our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. I love the one that you don't have to believe everything you think, right? So sometimes we just need to look at our situations from a different perspective. So like maybe there was something that you had a strong emotional reaction to at one point, and this thing happens again, and now you don't really feel that much. So something has happened in between. You've processed it, you've learned about it, you've talked about it, maybe you've rationalized it, and now you just don't really have any strong emotions about it. And the same exact situation happened, but you have changed. Your thoughts have changed, and so that causes your emotions to change. And you can do this about anything. So you can know that whatever you feel, you're going to be okay. If you're disappointed, you'll be okay. If you're embarrassed, you'll be okay. If you did something where good enough feels barely good enough, you'll be okay. So we're not trying to talk ourselves out of our emotions. We're trying to learn from them. We're trying to ask ourselves, what needs to happen so that I can get the message? Know that sometimes some things just feel bad. You're just angry or hurt or whatever. What is the conflict that's happening that you can get something out of? What can you get out of this? We know we don't want to feel it. We want to go numb. Say, I'm not going to be angry, or I'm not going to be sad, or I'm not going to be whatever, and that beach ball just keeps popping up whenever you don't want it to. So ask yourself the tough questions. So when people are angry, most of the time they want to blame it on someone else. Why did they do this? They make me so angry. This situation makes me so angry. So maybe ask yourself not what did they do that made me angry, but why does this make me angry? What is it about this situation that is making me angry? What is this saying about myself that makes me feel angry? Deep. And so get it off of the people and get it on yourself. What caused me to be angry? And you can keep going down levels. So such and such, this is what made me angry. Well, why did that make me angry? Okay, blah, blah, blah. Well, then why did that make me angry? What is this saying about me? You'll be surprised some of the times the things that you get to underneath about what is really going on, what you are really truly angry about. So we have this human spectrum, the spectrum of life. I don't know if you can see my hands, but on one side over here, really farther out, but if I put my hand out, you can't really see it. So one side, we've got just total, complete bliss. I mean, it's great and wonderful. Over here, we have total devastation. And so these are the human spectrum of emotions, bliss and devastation. Well, I want bliss, right? I want total bliss. Well, in order to have total bliss, I have to risk total devastation. So I think, well, maybe, I mean, I want bliss, but I really don't want to risk the devastation, so maybe I can live without bliss. So I pull the devastation, I don't want to risk that, so that pulls in the bliss side. So now here I'm on totally happy and totally sad. Well, I don't want to risk being totally sad. I was really totally sad back in 1975, and that just didn't really do so good, so I'm going to pull it in, which pulls in this. So we end up in just this barely, I'm a little bit happy, I'm a little bit sad, or I'm just comfortable. I'm comfortable and I'm uncomfortable. And so we end up narrowing our life when we have this whole spectrum of emotions, and when we allow ourselves to feel the whole spectrum of emotions, then we have a well-lived life. What an interesting life you have lived if you have experienced both bliss and devastation. So everyone has their own range of what they're willing to feel. And just the bigger the choice, the bigger the risk you have, the more wonderful emotions you're able to feel. So even though we've talked about sitting in your emotions and feeling your emotions and learning about your emotions, this is good, this is great. But sometimes you need to be able to shift your emotions. Either it's like, I've spent enough time in this today, I've sat in this pain enough today, I need to move on, and I can come back to this later, but I need to shift it now. Or maybe you're in a situation that you're not able to actually sit down and feel the emotions. You're at work, or you're with your children, and you're just doing something where you don't have the time to go be by yourself and feel the feelings. So you need to shift your emotions. Here are some ways, and you probably have some. So maybe if you're watching, if any of these resonate, or if you have a way that you like to that's different than these, tell me what you do to help shift your emotions. So smiling, laughing, stretching, talking with a colleague or a teammate or a coach. Tapping, I've never really done tapping, but I've heard that it's really good. You can learn more about that at thetapping.com. Listening to music, spending time with a family member or a friend, breathing deeply from the diaphragm. Just a couple of deep breaths where you make it take a few seconds in and out a few times. You'll be amazed at how well that will make you feel. Journal about what is bothering you. Have a soothing cup of tea. Get a massage, like that one. Read, sleep, take a walk, meditate, exercise, read funny quotes, play a game, read your Bible, phone a friend, play with a pet, pray, rock in a rocking chair, hold a baby, sing or play an instrument. I know that there are more that you can choose, and if you need some help in any of this, if you want help in sitting in your emotions, discovering, understanding your emotions, if you want help on learning how to shift your emotions, or any of the ways that your emotions are affecting you, if you would like some help in processing through that, consider hiring me as your coach. You can go to my website, kimberlincoaching.com, fill out the form at the bottom of the Work With Me page, and I will be glad to contact you, and we can have a great conversation. And meanwhile, I hope you got some good from this, and I hope you have a great week. So Laura, so you'd say, I've decided to be at peace. Saying it out loud helps you too, and then you just keep on working. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Having some kind of a thing, like if you're feeling like you're not enough, saying, I am enough. This too shall pass. I've decided to be at peace. That's great. Thank you, Laura. Okay, I hope you all have a great time, great day, great week, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.